I'd like to call November 21st Board of Public Works meeting to order. Start with invocation. Lord, thank you for the gift of the brain trusts that we have in employees all throughout the business and the dedicated staff. And pray that you watch over everybody for their safety, including the highline workers, people who are literally in the trenches, people who handle the chemicals, and the liability involved in management and staff. For those, we thank you. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I hear a motion on the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Do we have any comments from the audience?
Nobody on the notepad.
None heard? Oh, nobody on the notepad. And moving right along to Darren's general manager report.
I just have a few items, and we'll be brief. Well, first of all, we're continuing to move forward with our solar project. We're looking for a 7 megawatt construction at the airport itself, a 4 megawatt battery that's going to be at the Lakeside Drive substation. And currently, we've been having a lot of questions, just want to kind of manage expectations that this project, if everything goes just smooth as silk, it's still about a year and a half out from even turning dirt to get it constructed. We do have, on the positive side, we've had about 30 people pick up the applications from our consultant. So we've got lots of interest as that's going forward. One of the things we have done is we've been working with Aviation, thanks to the city. They're the engineers that work out at the airport, and they've just been superb, helping answer questions, figuring out exactly what the permitting is going to be required. There will be an environmental assessment that will be required, and that alone is probably going to take about a year before we can start doing construction. So I just put that out there, and again, anybody that's listening that has or wants to participate in that RFP, it is still open. We will be opening that on December 15th and whittling that down to the small group of qualifiers and move forward with that. So that project is doing well. The second item that I would like to share with you is just talking about employee matters. We have in the next month, thank you.
Do I have to say it all over again? You'd rather not, thank you. Employee matters. We have already had one official retirement. We had a great party, good piece of cake, and now we're going to have at least 3 more. And I bring this to your attention that we're starting to have a little bit of more gray hair in some of our employees, and so we anticipate that this may be happening some more. We do have a succession plan. We are working at capturing all of the institutional knowledge that will someday soon possibly be walking out the door. And so we see this happening, but we'd also know that our HR person, and she's been working day and night, doing lots of hiring, lots of changeover. And I don't know if someone is going to be welcomed officially by you, Matt, or can I introduce him? If we'd like to introduce, we have a new employee here, Lance Kendrick. He's here to help. What's the official title, Matt?
Facility supervisor.
He's going to be reporting directly under Matt. Go ahead.
Jeff Williams at the wastewater plant is retiring. I think his last official day is here next week sometime, or end of next week. He'll officially retire at the end of the year. Lance is going to be over the wastewater plant and the water plant as well. So, and today's his first day.
And Lance has been here before, but we're thrilled to have him coming back to the BPW family, and he brings with him a lot of experience and a lot of respect. And so we're thankful to have him here with us. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
So you related to the Monroe City Kendricks?
Probably, but
Just don't mention it.
Now you're in trouble.
I'll be careful now. Here's one thing I've learned: don't say anything bad about anybody because they're related to 2/3 of you.
Yeah, I know, this sounds that bad about that.
The other item I'd like to share is that on public relations, Matthew Jones has really been running with that. And I hope you've had a chance to go online, look at our website. We've got the banners that come across, and there comes one that talks about the water treatment plant. And if you click on that, there's about a 2-minute video that runs through what that is. Well, he's also completed just recently the wastewater treatment plant, done the same way, and allowing people to look. He's got some great ideas that he's moving forward, but he's done a superb job of running with that and being able to communicate. And so it makes it quick, easy. Matthew himself did some training where this is really the way it's going, that you want to communicate with just less than 2 minutes.
snippets.
A snippet, here it is, put it in pictures, let them listen to it, done, move on. And he's doing a great job with that, and really, really appreciate
I
it.
looked at it. It's great. Good job.
The final item that I'd like to share with you is the power supply. One of the things that we are still working on is right now we're going to be working seriously about the next summer's hedge. Our consultants are helping us with that. We are still not getting any good news out there. They're saying that we still have an issue with natural gas supply. The other part of the power hedging is the capacity hedge. And that's what we, this year, we have committed appropriately, and it's been working out for us very well. That 3.4 million hit because of the capacity going from roughly $4 or $5 up to $236. We're looking at getting a hedge to help protect us on that volatility. It is very slim pickings because in the MISO market, the MISO market is going from a 1-year construct where you take and figure out your capacity charge, what your peak is going to be for one time, and then you buy that block for a year. They're doing it now quarterly. So they're going to be doing a winter, spring, summer, fall, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And so most of your generators are holding those capacity credits very close to the chest until they know exactly what's going to be happening. So, but we have our consultants. Again, this is one of those items that's concerning, but we're watching it. We have our consultants absolutely on it. We've even looked at doing some kind of out-of-the-box things where we actually go purchase capacity from PJM, from another transmission organization, and bring that into the MISO organization and in. And so we're looking at, well, I share that with you simply to say we're looking at all options and making sure that we can get the very best bet and be able to reduce volatility going forward to the best of our ability. And that is it for my report, unless you have questions.
Are we currently in the maintenance shutdown for the coal plant in Illinois?
Just got past it. That was finished about 2 weeks ago, Paul. So, yeah, and so we're back on, they're back on 100% and serving as well.
So next month's report will show what the financial effect of it was.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yes.
I don't have any questions. Anybody have
No.
questions up here?
Thank you.
Okay, haven't heard none, then Matt, if you could work the operations report, please.
All right, starting off with electric, we continue to have 99.994% reliability. Again, we're spending a lot of money this year trimming trees. Townsend brought in a backyard easement machine. We're able to take basically an off-road bucket that'll fit between a 36-inch walk gate, maneuver it in the backyard, and then do more aggressive trimming. In the past, those trees have been, had to be climbed by somebody and just weren't getting the amount of trimming that was necessary at that point. And so this effort's been shown the last few windstorms we've had. We had a windstorm here. I can't remember the exact day. Later in the month of October, we had 7 outages. I mean, the wind blew pretty hard, and they were relatively minor. A limb here knocked out a whole circuit, or a limb here knocked out this whole subdivision. And so we were able to get those restored relatively quickly. So we're seeing the payback on that more aggressive trimming. Also, we ordered a generator for the water treatment plant back in June of 21, July 21, when we sold the generators. There was a 2 megawatt generator sitting at the water plant. It was oversized. We only need about a 750 or 1 megawatt generator up there, and so that one was sold as well. December of last year, we ordered a new generator. Well, we finally got word that the generator and a transfer switch are ready. So they're working on that project to get some electrical conduit ran and a new foundation pad for that generator. And hopefully within the next month or so, we'll get that set and that on its own standby generator at this point. Water, we're still working on trying to find lost water. We're setting up a baseline with the water meters at the water plant. Contractor we're working with, they're having some issues with the hotspot connection, and they're working to figure that out. Once they get that baseline set, then they'll go ahead and dig deeper into it. But they want to verify that what our meters are saying is exactly what's going out of there, and so we're continuing to do that. But if you look at our water production, we're right on track with what it was last year. So still better than in 2020. So we're doing good there. We've got a GAC exchange occurring today and tomorrow. And then we're also working with the Black & Veatch, our consultants, to help evaluate GAC for the next contract, because we are at the end of our 3-year contract that was negotiated just prior to the plant going online. Wastewater treatment plant, we had an issue with one of our compressors that pressurizes the system for our pure oxygen system. It's something we're going to have to look at as we move forward with budgeting. Both were installed in about this time back in 2012, and so we're starting to see more frequent failures, and so we're going to have to look at either a more aggressive maintenance schedule on them, or maybe looking at a wholesale replacement on one this year, maybe one the following year, or see what we can do. Right now, most of the failures are isolated to one of them, and so we don't understand why. They have similar hours, they get similar use on a weekly basis, and so we're trying to evaluate that. We got a Bear Creek Dam inspection that was scheduled in October. It happened here on November 8th. The sewer crew had been doing some clearing work out on the spillway out off Highway HH. Everything checked out well. We got the actual dam mowed just prior to the inspection, which they were happy with as well. Only one item that needs to be addressed is where we removed all the vegetation out on the spillway on HH. We need to get back there this winter and burn the piles. It's the only thing that they had really to note. So kudos to that crew going out there and tackling that. We had our barcoding set up for our NISC and our inventory. We've been working through that, and they're continuing to work through that process, and maybe eventually turn some of that over to the crews to address as well. We're still doing our meter change out. We're getting down to where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but now we're running into supply chain issues. Some of the meters are coming, some of them aren't. Some of them we've received are prematurely failing, and just trying to get that process of getting those replaced is taking some work. And that's pretty much it, unless you all have any specific questions.
I have one on intake. I think you said there was some maintenance done on the intake structure. Is there any issues there with low water?
No.
Nothing?
Now, the maintenance that we're doing with the intake is we take it down every spring and every fall, wash mud out of it, make sure that there's no, in the past they'd had issues with wood debris getting lodged in there or whatnot. But with the screens that we've got in place, we just basically take it down and make sure, wash it out so that we don't have an issue with the restricting flow. This year, since we didn't have high river level, there was minimal amount of mud debris in there, and so it didn't take them too long to clean it out at all.
Okay.
We usually start down there and work our way through the plant with our cleanings. But this year there was some safety issues that we had to address down there first. And so we did all the other cleaning and then went back and got that once those safety issues were addressed.
Any questions about the operations report?
I will, Matt, we're gonna go through, and we did get information back from the ARPA.
I'm going to do that in project.
You got it right now. Okay, I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Okay, you can move on to projects.
Don't jump ahead here.
Eh,
The big one, or two big ones we're working on projects wise, is first the development of the stormwater utility. We had a meeting the last, I think it was 31st of October, with Black and Veatch. They're going to go through and reevaluate the financials, what it would take to set up the system, how we deem fit, and then ultimately come up with a cost associated with it that we can then turn around into a ballot initiative that we seek council approval on. The plan on that is to get you all to approve the ballot language at your December meeting, December 19th, take it to the city council on the 20th, and do the second reading. I think it's the 3rd of January. That would give us a little bit of cushion because it doesn't have to be submitted to the county until the 20-something of January. And so if we did run into an issue, there's still another council meeting in there that we could seek approval on. The other big item is the fin connection with Ameren on our electrical side. What Jared say, 3/5 of the wire has been pulled. There were some issues with finding some parts and pieces necessary to suspend the wire up on the poles. We've found some workarounds on those. They began pulling wire, I think it was beginning of last week. They're going to hopefully finish up wire next week. They're working today and tomorrow and then taking off for the holiday. And so finish up next week. And so they'll have all that line construction pretty much done. There's one section of the old 74 line over here on Orchard Avenue that will have to take an outage so that they can safely drop that old line and get it out of the way. And then the focus will be on the substation construction over here at Oakwood. We have ran into an issue with supply chain getting materials. Some stuff was supposed to be here beginning to mid-November. They're now saying maybe be here in February. And so we're at the mercy of those suppliers. And so we've already pushed back the startup date on that until January, but it's looking like it'll be later into February or maybe even to March at this point, depending on when those materials do arrive. I don't foresee it being a big issue at this point, but the longer it lingers on, the more of an issue it will become because, again, we're putting all of our eggs in the basket of being able to be fed from the west substation. So, and then city projects, Union Street, they're wrapped up all except the stormwater inlets. Once those stormwater inlets are installed, the street will be open back up. It'll be gravel until which time the street department can get in there and do the curb and gutter, the sidewalks, and also ultimately relay the street, which will probably be March or early April at this point, depends on weather. So it will be open here whenever the precaster can get the contractor the inlets. So other than that project went relatively smooth. Lakeside Drive extension, that's out there in front of us, or just south of the sleep in toward our west substation. Bly's the contractor on that. They've got the curb and gutter poured. They're working on pouring the street, and that should be done here within the next couple of weeks. So the only thing they'll have remaining on that project is the seeding and strawing and ultimately getting grass growing on it. But again, that's a project we're contributing the 20% match to the governor's cost share on. So roughly a $700,000 project. And then after this report was sent out, we did get notification from Missouri Department of Natural Resources that of the 5 ARPA applications that we had submitted, we got selected for 1. We got $500,000 for the Bear Creek Dam spillway. Somewhere when it was built, it wasn't built to plan by the Corps back in early 60s, I guess it would be. And then DNR came about inspecting it in early 2000s. They found this a couple years ago when they did a hydraulic model of it, that conceivably, if Bear Creek Dam had to use the spill or backed up enough water that it went across the spillway, that it wouldn't allow enough water to get out, could cause failure of the dam. But anyhow, we went and asked for money to go and widen that spillway to what the original design was, and also take out where some of the hillside is eroded down into and deposited that silt down into the floor of the spillway, reshape that. And so we did get funded. We did not get funded for lead service line inventory, which we were asking around $200,000 for. We had also asked for money to redo our gravity sand filters and the pre-sedimentation basin at the water plant. And that was $1.5 million. We'd asked for almost $4 million in sewering unsewered areas of town, and that got declined as well. And then the other one was a study on evaluation of the storm sewer system for about $1.5 million, and it got declined. So on a good note, the city was able to obtain roughly $5 million for the North Street storm sewer. So we're meeting with them in the coming weeks to hopefully determine what the next step forward in that process is.
Just a matter of perspective is that the state received over 1,000 applications with more than $2.4 billion in requested dollars. And that was what they were able to award was $410 million. And so just mathematically, almost all of our applications still were effective. They just didn't have the funding. So Matt's did a great job on seeking and trying to get those grants.
And since we just received that information Friday, we're going through all the data coming out, trying to see where some of the money did go and what type of projects they were doing with it as well. So hopefully we'll come back with you next month and give a little better update on where we stood. So
Good news. Mm-hmm. Especially the North Street project. All right. Are you at the end of your report, Matt? Do we have any questions from? Okay, thank you very much. Next up would be Paul with financial.
All right, I'll try to keep this brief as you're going to get a lot of financial info thrown at you here in just a little bit with the audit. But for October, really not much to report on the balance sheet. Very little change in cash again this month. Kind of a shoulder month for us in terms of cash and revenue. And so looking at the income statement, we did have net income that was just a little bit over budget for October. The water and sewer funds both had positive months, but it was actually the electric fund that saw revenues that were about $163,000 less than what we budgeted. If we compare to a year ago, utility-wide net income was about $42,000 less this year. The water fund continues to outperform itself from the prior year, primarily due to the rate increase that was done back in July. But the electric and sewer funds both had numbers a little bit behind last year's numbers. Kilowatt hour sales in the electric fund were down by about 6.7% compared to a year ago. And so how we're doing so far year to date for fiscal year 23, utility-wide net operating income is about $283,000 more than what we budgeted. We do have all three funds doing better so far compared to budget. The water and sewer funds specifically are seeing higher revenues than budgeted, which is carrying those funds, and the electric fund is seeing lower purchase power costs and operating expenses compared to budget by about $92,000. But again, like we've talked about pretty much every month, the Prairie State MISO credits that we receive back continue to carry the electric fund, as those are now $3.2 million more than what we had budgeted. And so we're continuing to get extensive benefit from Prairie State. Compared to a year ago, revenues utility-wide, electric, water, and sewer are up by about 3%, which is the exact amount of the rate increase done in the water fund in July. So that makes sense there. Purchase power costs in the electric fund are up 8%. So that's offsetting those higher revenues just a little bit. John, you mentioned it, but Prairie State did have one of its units down for an outage for about 35 days. That started on October 1st. And so it would have came back online November 5th or 6th, somewhere in there. And then the second Prairie State unit went down for a 10-day outage on November 1st. So we had a period there of about 5 days where both Prairie State units were down in November. So we'll see that impact specifically next month. But as far as October goes, we had minimal impact. Luckily, our hourly price that we pay for power came down substantially compared to what we had seen over the summer. So that helped us out a lot. We had a pretty mild month weather-wise as well. So really no big impact from that outage, which is kind of the reason they plan it during October. I did want to point out that if you looked at everything on a net perspective so far year to date, we don't have any fluctuations in our budget greater than 10%. So that's always good that we're seeing consistency in when we put that budget together in all of our numbers. Debt covenants, we'll look at those real briefly here on page 20. All three funds did come down a little bit in terms of debt service coverage ratio. Again, keeping a close eye on the water fund. It's at a 1.61 by my calculation right now. So still doing pretty good, staying over that 1.25 requirement. I think that was all I wanted to point out. Everything else is our normal reports in there. By now, you've probably seen interest rates going up quite a bit, and so we're seeing some of those short-term CDs and treasury bills start to mature, and so we're reinvesting in interest rates that were much higher than what we had seen about 6, 8, even a year ago, which is a good sign for us. Any questions on the financial report for October?
Paul, this is probably not the forum to do it, but can you briefly explain the difference between unrestricted and restricted investments?
Yeah, absolutely. So our restricted would include the money that we've set aside for debt service primarily. And so every month we're taking money out of that unrestricted bucket, if you will, and putting it into that restricted and kind of building it up. And then once those principal and interest payments are due, it comes out of that restricted bucket. So it's just a way of tracking it, setting that money aside, if you will, to pay for debt service.
Okay. Interesting. Any questions about the financial report? Nope. Having heard none, Paul, if we could continue on to the next item, annual audit report.
All right, so we've actually got Williams Keepers here with us today virtually to present our audit, the draft of our audit for fiscal year 2022. So Matthew's working on getting them pulled up here on the screen, but we have Amanda Schultz and Kristen Brown with us today, two familiar faces, which is something I wanted to point out, that the consistency that we've received every year with our auditors has been super convenient and nice for us. We don't have a whole lot of new faces every year, so that's been great. It was a great year. We had Williams Keepers on site for about 2 days here at the BPW. Got a lot done, and then we had another week of about a couple more days where we did virtual kind of back and forth, and I think everything worked out really well. So we really appreciate Amanda and Kristen and her team and all the hard work they did for us. And so I will turn it over to them now to go ahead and present the draft audit.
Hey, thank you for that nice introduction, Paul. Matthew, are we ready to go? Do you have us up on the screen?
You can just talk to them. Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up the audit report. So as Paul mentioned, I'm Amanda Schultz, the audit partner. Kristen Brown is an audit manager, and she was the in charge on the audit again this year. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit as well as to present the drafts of our reports to you all this afternoon. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to turn it over after that to Kristen to present the draft of the audited financial statements. Can you all see that document now?
If you could maximize that, that would be easier to.
Yeah, let me see if I can go to the full screen mode here. Is that a little bit better?
Yep.
Okay.
All
All right, Kristen, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. So today I will be covering the draft report of the audited financial statements. So the first 3 pages of the financial statements are the independent auditor's report or the opinion letter. So our auditing standards required some changes to this letter this year, which required the reorganization of the letter as well as some additional clarification on auditor and management responsibilities. So this is the only part of the financial statements that is our responsibility as your auditors. We will issue an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements this year. So in our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. So this is the best opinion that you can receive, and it means that the users of your financial statements can rely on them. This letter also includes an emphasis of matter paragraph, just to clarify that these financial statements only present the Board of Public Works and not the City of Hannibal, which we also audited again this year. So in the coming weeks, we'll issue a combined audited financial statement that includes both the Board of Public Works and the City of Hannibal, in addition to issuing these standalone financial statements just for the Board of Public Works. This letter also discusses that management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. Although we did prepare the financial statements, which is common practice for us as independent auditors, management has reviewed them and will approve them before they are issued. On page 2 of this letter, it discusses our responsibility as auditors, which is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So we use our judgment in determining how to audit the Board of Public Works. We do this by performing a risk assessment process, by reviewing balances, transactions, processes, and controls, and we focused our attention on areas where the financial statements could be misstated. So this means that we didn't audit every balance or every transaction, but we did enough work in order to be able to give an opinion on the financial statements. Also on page 2 and then continuing on to page 3 of our opinion letter, we refer to some other information. So the required supplementary information includes the management discussion and analysis, which is on pages 4 through 7, and the pension and OPEB plan schedules, which are on pages 27 through 29. So this information is required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board to be included in the audited financial statements. However, we're only required to apply certain limited procedures to this information. So as a result, we won't express an opinion or provide any assurance on it. We also list out the supplementary information, which includes the capital asset schedules on pages 30 and 31, the schedule of investments on page 32, and then the schedule of top 10 utility customers on page 33. So this information was subjected to various audit procedures. So as a result, we will express an unmodified or a clean opinion on it in relation to the financial statements taken as a whole. And then lastly, the other information includes the comparative statements of operating factors. These are on pages 34 through 36. And this information wasn't subjected to any audit procedures, and as a result, we won't express an opinion on it. Moving on to page 4, and really pages 4 through 7 of the audited financial statements are the management's discussion and analysis. So this information was prepared by management to provide an introduction to, as well as an overview of the financial statements from the Board of Public Works perspective. Next, I will discuss the actual financial statement. So on page 8 is the statement of net position, or otherwise known as the balance sheet. So this statement presents each fund's assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and finally net position as of June 30th, 2022. So total assets increased by approximately 12.1 million. This is mainly due to an increase in restricted cash related to the project fund for the certificates of participation in the electric fund that were issued. Deferred outflows of resources decreased by approximately 145,000, mainly due to GASB 68 pension plan and the GASB 75 OPEB plan balances, which are reported by the plan's actuaries. So deferred outflows of resources, these are just the result of timing differences at year end that will be recognized as outflows or expenses in future years. Next, total liabilities increased by approximately 7.1 million. This is mainly due to the issuance of those certificates of participation that I mentioned earlier, and offset by the payoff of the generator's lease and the ordinary debt service payments that were made throughout the year. Deferred inflows of resources, these decreased by approximately 2.1 million. This is also due to the GASB 68 pension plan and the GASB 75 OPEB plan balances, again reported by the plan's actuaries. So similar to deferred outflows, deferred inflows are a result of timing differences at year end, and they will be recognized as inflows or revenues in future years. So all of those changes resulted in total net position increasing by approximately 6.9 million. So of the Board of Public Works total net position of 80.6 million, it's broken into several categories. So first, 41.7 million represents your net investments in capital assets. So that means that it is the capital assets net of the related debt issued to acquire or construct those assets. The next category, approximately 12.4 million, is restricted for debt service and the GASB 68 net pension asset. And then the remaining 26.5 million is unrestricted and may be used to meet ongoing obligations to your customers. On page 9 is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, otherwise known as the income statement. So this statement presents each fund's operating and non-operating revenues and expenses for the year ended June 30th, 2022. So total operating income increased by approximately 2.3 million, mainly due to decreased operating expenses, specifically those related to purchased power costs. Total non-operating income increased by approximately 1.7 million. This was mainly due to the gain recognized on the sale of the diesel generators during the year. So the resulting net change in net position was an increase of approximately 6.9 million. Moving on to page 10 is the statement of cash flows. So this statement presents each fund's financial statement information just in a different format by essentially reporting where the cash came in and then where the cash went out during the year. So the total net change in cash and cash equivalents was an increase of 10.8 million. Next, I will briefly touch on the notes to the financial statements. So note 1 is on pages 11 through 14, and it is a summary of the significant accounting policies. There were no new accounting policies that were required to be implemented this year or that had an impact on the Board of Public Works. So that means that nothing was accounted for or reported differently in this year's financial statements compared to previous years. So because of this, there were no additions or significant changes to the remaining notes on pages 14 through 26. And then finally, the audited financial statements conclude with the required supplementary information, the supplementary information, and the other information that I mentioned at the start of our presentation. I know I covered those kind of quickly and had a high level, but do you have any specific questions about the audited financial statements that I could answer?
I do have a question. On page 19, as I reviewed this, under Prairie State Energy Contract, basically legal language, and I just wanted to point it out to my fellow board members. It's a tough read to slug through that with all the acronyms, first of all. But really the question is, and it's the highlight in the last let me see, it's the third paragraph, the last line. The UPPA does not create any ownership rights on the part of the HBPW in Prairie State. And I would want to make sure that I understand that correctly. I don't know if it reflects the audit as much as it does the legal language.
I believe it's.
So I believe it is the legal language. You have Mudgemuck, who is now MPUA. They're the ones that have a contract with Prairie State. They have approximately, I think it says in here, 10% of Prairie State. 12%.
12.3%.
Okay, and so we get 20 megawatts of that, but that's only a portion of that 12.3. And so Mudgemuck is actually the owner. We are simply a client of them, and therefore the contract, which is the UPPA, which we have with Mudgemuck, does not actually give us ownership of Prairie State.
Okay.
Okay, so it really is a legal, what they're saying, we don't own it, so we couldn't walk over to Prairie State and say, I own 0.002% of you, therefore, but we are able to buy power from them because of the agreement, because Mudgemuck has that agreement with them. I don't know if it actually makes them an owner, but our contract with them, therefore, does not give us ownership, but it gives us the right to purchase power.
And of course, then the next question is, does it present liability for us 25 years from now during shutdown?
I believe it still does, but that would absolutely be a question for legal to look at that and to be able to answer that. But yes, we're still committed to pay that bill past the shutoff date of what the state of Illinois has said that Prairie State is going to be shutting down. Okay. So we've got a couple years at the end of that we would be paying for something that we're not receiving.
Okay. Which begs the next question, and again, it's if that's the case legally, does it behoove us to create a reserve fund for that contingency? Maybe we already do, and I'm just not aware of it. Based on our reduced power costs, taking a percentage of that, say a number, 15%, as a reserves for the termination of that plant.
That's an exceptional discussion that we should. Right now, we have our reserves. We're using that reserves to take in and manage volatility, to help us go out and look for hedges that will help maintain that and still, reduce that volatility. Do we actually put anything away specifically called for Prairie State demise or something, to that effect? We do not, but we are you can see that from the audit itself, we are healthy. Our reserve is growing, small amount, but we need to maintain that. Yeah. There's a value in that for us because we do have some uncertainty coming in the future.
Yeah. So my analogy in my brain was, okay, if my roof lasts 20 years on my house and it costs $20,000, pick a number, to replace that over that time period, I need to save $1,000 a year for that event. In other words, it's just ongoing maintenance.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. We could take 2 years of purchase power costs that we're now putting into Prairie State, what that's going to be, those 2 years where we don't have anything returned, but we're going to have to pay for it. And we could start now saving that amount, amortizing that money across and saving that, putting that into that reserve, recognizing that it is currently a liability. Okay. Very good point. Thank you.
Would you not think that that would probably end up at the courts before that happens?
Yeah. Are we certain that's going to happen? Absolutely not. It's far enough down. Frankly, there's a lot of political sway that's going on there. What's going to ultimately happen, we don't know. But I also will say that I think Bill's point that reserve fund is for those uncertainties. And
Better safe than sorry.
unfortunately, our uncertainties have grown exponentially with renewables becoming the direction that the world's going for the natural gas costs. All of this is volatility we've never seen before. And so I think that the wisdom in that reserve fund becomes more and more prevalent than it's ever been before. So thank you. Great point.
Sorry, Kristen, to go down that rabbit hole.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Just to add a bit of context to that, I think that was a great question and great discussion, certainly. And it sounds like more to be had. But at Mudmuck's level, they are recording the asset retirement obligation for their 12.33% ownership share in Prairie State. So if you all go down the path of establishing a reserve for any future costs that the Hannibal Board of Public Works may have related to that liability that, Mudmuck may pass some of those costs on to you all, I would certainly work with them, work with the folks at MPUA to help come up with those estimates for the reserve.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Are there any other questions on the draft of the audited financial statements?
I don't have any. Do you have any questions? No.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment. I'm not sure if you can see myself and Kristen now or not, but I did just want to note we will issue 2 additional letters as a result of our audit. The first is the auditor's communication letter, and it really just includes a lot of required language that our professional standards require that we include in an audit report that goes to the governing board of an auditee, and for this board, for the Board of Public Works, you all serve that role. So just a few highlights I wanted to run through real quick, and really no significant changes from prior years. We didn't note any transactions during our audit that we considered both unusual and significant. We do evaluate estimates and disclosures each year as part of our audit. We did find the accounting records to be in good order. We did propose a few minor adjustments again this year, really just due to the timing of when you all receive your GASB 68 report from loggers, GASB 75 reports from those actuaries. So really just due to timing and no concerns with the books or anything. And also we did not have any disagreements with management on accounting or auditing issues. We felt we received full cooperation from everyone that we worked with. So we certainly appreciate Darren and Paul and their team's assistance in facilitating another smooth audit this year. We will also issue a management letter that relates to internal controls. The scope of our audit engagement was directed towards giving an opinion on the financial statements and not on internal controls, but we do provide or perform some limited procedures on internal controls. And if we have any findings or recommendations, we would report them in the management letter. And for the Board of Public Works, based on the limited procedures we performed, we did not identify any material weaknesses in your internal controls that are required to be reported in that letter. We have had some other recommendations, just best practice type recommendations in that letter in recent years. And we've worked with Paul and his team to get those resolved. So there's nothing even related to the Board of Public Works in that letter this year. So that's all good things to report. Are there any questions about those 2 letters that I covered very briefly at a very high level?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, again, we appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit. Thanks for listening to us go through the drafts there. If you all have any questions or need anything between now and I believe the city's city council meeting is Tuesday, December 6th, please let us know. Again, these reports are in draft form, so we can, still there's time to make a few minor changes and things like that. So let Darren or Paul know. Then know how to get a hold of us if you guys have any questions or any suggested changes to these reports.
Nope, I don't think we have. Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay. I guess next on the agenda.
Can I, I'm gonna step on you again. Can I say one last thing? It is really, truly is remarkable that Paul and his team, it is no material weaknesses. They are looking at the internal controls. They have 0 to give there. That is a unmodified, a clean audit. It is as spotless as you can be. And really, truly, I thank Paul and his team they are able to, he has almost in record time, they ask a list of information and data and spreadsheets that they want to have and look at. And Paul's able to get that in absolute record time. I think he had it within almost about a week and a half of their request for all of that information. He had it to them. He cooperates fully. They see it. It is as clean as it can be. And so I truly thank Paul, and you can be very proud. We can show this off to anybody. Our records are absolutely spotless, and anybody wants to question it, we've got answers, we've got the numbers, and I'm proud, exceptionally proud of the work that Paul and his team has done. So I thank him.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
Very good.
Moving along to schedule of rates and fees.
Okay, and I was going to mention, just like Amanda said, we do have until December 6th at the city council meeting to make any changes that we see before that the audit's finalized. So we do have some time if you do see anything. So schedule of rates and fees, will getting that before you there here in November. That what we've got proposed here would actually take effect in January. And so if you recall back during our budgeting process, we talked about making some water rate changes to get back on track with the recommendations that UFS had made for us during their rate study back in 2018. And then again, if you remember, they confirmed those that study here just in September of this year. And what they kind of said is about a 5.5% rate increase annually to keep up with really two things. One being the loss of Rawls County Public Water Supply as a significant water user, and then two, the debt that we took on associated with the GAC filtration process. And so, again, recall that we postponed those annual increases when the pandemic hit in March of 2020. The last increase before that was in January of 2020. And then this year, we're kind of getting back on track to keep in line with those debt covenants. And so we did a 3.5% rate increase in July, and then we're proposing here to do a 7.4% increase in January, and that'll average out right about that 5.5% that UFS had recommended. So anytime that we change a rate, or before I guess I get there, kind of some just real briefly financial numbers behind that. 60% of that proposed rate increase would be in the usage charge, and then 40% would be in the fixed meter charge or customer charge. And so what that looks like for the average residential customer that uses about 3,300 gallons a month would be a cost of about $3.10 with this increase in January. As far as the schedule of rates and fees goes, the only other changes that we're kind of looking at with some clarification wording regarding our annual rate class evaluations that we do. So that you'll see that in there redlined. And then the other one would be the cost of an outside watering meter that has not been updated in quite a few years. And obviously, like everything else, the cost of meters has gone up as well. And so we're evaluating where we're going to set that, but we'll have that on there as well. So what I was saying is that anytime we change a rate, a charge, or a fee, our city charter requires us to hold a public rate hearing. And so we're asking tonight for a proposal from the board to go ahead and set a rate hearing at 4 p.m. on December 19th, directly ahead of our scheduled board meeting on that day.
So what we'll do is we'll hold the board meeting, just the regular time, but the initial will be the rate hearing.
At 4 o'clock.
As soon as it's completed,
Yeah.
we'll just move forward with the board meeting.
So this is our normal board meeting day.
Normal board
Okay.
meeting.
That's what I was looking for, the date.
You want a motion on that?
I believe that's the 18th, is that correct?
Yeah, the
19th, I think, yep.
Mhm.
I guess we need a motion on the floor for a public hearing as a part of the board meeting.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
And that's on the December 19th
Yes.
for the rate hearing. I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
What else? Is that it for you, Paul?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any comment from the city attorney? Having heard none, go on to general discussion. Anybody have anything to mention? Other than Bill, you probably should read that agreement that we have with the group about the Prairie State. It covers 100 different angles, and it repeats 1,000,000 times that we don't have any equity, but we have all ownership responsibilities. It's an amazing document. It just make your brain melt.
Well, that's why I said on page 19, I went over that 3 times, and I even read it out loud,
Yeah.
trying to clarify, and it's the acronyms. You know,
But the
it
whole
just,
agreement is on the teams. You should read it. It's kind of amazing.
so we need to talk about that and probably set a direction.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good point. All right. Anyone have anything? Well, I recommend that we adjourn. Any motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you all.
Thank you.
About under an hour.
Thanks for coming, Mike.
What?
Under an hour, believe it or not.
I was gonna s-
You know.